Hello again, kiddlings. Today is day 2 of my new decision to embark on this whirlwind adventure of becoming a YouTuber. This is Christine Barba, and yesterday I walked everyone through that time I felt like, my head was gonna fall off. And I talked a little bit about my own experience and just overcoming chronic pain and symptom loops. And so today I'm actually in a hotel parking lot. My thing has always been hotel pool hopping. Usually if you walk right into a hotel with just like an air of confidence, act like you're a guest, they typically, at least in my experience, and maybe it helps that I'm just, a 5'3" female, they usually don't say anything if you just act like you belong. So pro tip, if you don't do that. And by the way, when I was going through a lot of the stuff I was navigating, which we will talk about, I would still do stuff like that, but usually it was miserable. Well, I don't want to say miserable. I had good times, but it's like when every single thought is being redirected to your throat and your breathing, and every word is so excruciating, it's really hard to focus and live in the moment. You want to. I started to say to the very cool OCD psychologist I started working with, I said it almost used to feel like I was living this double life because I wanted to be enjoying the moment and the people I was around and really getting to engage with them, and I wanted that so badly. But at the same time, I think too, if people haven't experienced this, they'll say oh, it was like a little sore throat, right? And then I'm like, you innocent little lambs. It's very intense, the speaking pain when you're dealing with, this type of thought loop, and it manifests there. It hurts. And then at the same time, your brain's like, hey, let's redirect every single thought to this area and your vocal cords and whatever else you can imagine. And by the way, if this is triggering, this stuff used to really trigger me too, but I'm talking about it in such a lighthearted way because if you're dealing with any of these symptoms all around this area, I just want people to know that they are going to recover. They are going to get better. It just takes some time. So yeah, if you're one of the poor schmucks like me who ended up in this loop, please don't ever quote me on that. By the way, anyone going through this stuff, I know it is brutal, and you guys are, like I said yesterday, people experiencing this and working to overcome it are my heroes, because I know it's so hard. And you are going to get better, but it's tough. So anyways, if you're going through this, I just wanted to cover some parts of my journey and things I started to learn about and get help with that started to help me. So I will start to talk about that. I think one of the first things I ask people when they reach out to me, and it's kind of funny when people reach out because like I said yesterday, I'm like, oh my God, we would be really good friends in everyday life because it's very clear we think the same, or at least we have the same brain. But yeah, something I notice is, like myself, the messages will be very long, which is fine. I am not laughing or mocking you. I probably sent messages that were 10 times longer. I sent books, panicked, scary novels that, I don't know, if I were to look, I've looked back at a few and it's sad, but it's good when you can at least laugh about it now. So yeah, very long emails, typically very similar stories, or it's been going on for a while. A lot of times if people are reaching out, they know all of the exact same people in this field, and every like label there ever has been for this condition, they know all of it, because this form of, you know, I like to just call it a repetitive little thought loop. For me, like I said, what resonated was like, oh yeah, you have like, this is a form of OCD, which you can recover from. But we become true expert researchers on the topic. We know everyone in the whole world of, whether it's like the mind body world, we know all their names. We've probably been a part of all the groups. We've also probably been a part of very depressing Facebook groups. I'm sure we've made our rounds to different doctors. And if you haven't, you've like looked it up. Maybe you have spreadsheets listing different things and ways you could get better. We're really good researchers, and it's not our fault. The brain is, you know, OCD, you should say, right? Or the repetitive thought loop. It's kicking off a lot of those behaviors and habits, and when you're in it, we're not even aware of that we've become these like master researchers on the subject. And it kind of took, you know, the very kind psychologist I started working with, who treats this stuff and who just like really resonated with me, to point a lot of that out. Like, oh yeah, OCD would love it if you just spent the rest of your life researching your pain and ways to get better, and being online all day and doom scrolling. Or even when you're out, like, you know, I think that's why we hesitate and we avoid activities, is because we're like, yeah, okay, great, I went out, but when I'm out, my throat feels like it's gonna like fall out of my head. I don't know if that metaphor didn't really work, but basically it's tough because we'll go out and we feel like we've been doing things, and we have, but when you're not feeling good, it's like, but the good news is, starting to identify avoidance behaviors is really, really helpful. That was super useful for me. I often felt like I was doing a lot of stuff because I was still trying to like travel the world and maintain relationships with people and, you know, do various things. But at the same time, I didn't realize like how much of the time I, because of this condition, was also forced to, you know, or was also just avoiding a lot of stuff. And so that's something I like to kind of ask people, like, what does a typical day in your life look like? Okay, so I'll give an example. Amanda Ashley, who I mentioned yesterday, amazing, from the Lightning program with the British accent that I envy. I remember when I first started working with her and signed up for the Lightning process in January of 2023, I believe. Yeah. I remember my mom had called her just because at the time speaking had gotten so excruciating. Like I said, it was rock bottom city at that time. Yeah. But anyways, I think my mom had mentioned, she said something to Amanda like, well, Christine feels like she has been keeping busy. And she said that Amanda said like busier, she has to keep busier. And that was something that I think now I can look at, or that is something I can look at. When you're in this loop, you think you're doing things, you feel like you're still engaging in life, and I was doing quite a bit. But a lot of even like the travels I was going on and, you know, doing all this stuff, it was still in the back of my mind. I was going to this stuff to like fix everything and fix and fix and fix. And so that's a hard way to be in the moment. And of course you're doing it because you're suffering. And so it's like this, you know, chicken or egg, I don't know. You're seeking out all this stuff because you're suffering, but you don't see that this loop is like causing you to engage in a lot of those behaviors. And so I would go and I would do things and I would keep busy, but then I would end, like, the stuff would be so high just because, you know, I hadn't really like gotten this loop treated. It would be so high that then I would like return back home, and I would just lie in bed for a long time, very long time, and I would be in club bed. And even, or I would like go out with friends, you know, one day, but it would hurt so bad that I'd get really discouraged, and then I would just want to like lie around. And that is part of the habit that we want to shift, because you want to be consistent when you're starting to engage in life. And so Amanda would say like, no pushing, but you know, obviously like encouraging us to do more, engaging in life again, which was great. And I think that's something that might be confusing to people, because we feel like we're doing things and keeping busy, but really then when I'll ask people like, what does a typical day look like? They're very similar to me, where a lot of them I notice like either work remotely, or they've stopped working, or they have been retired. Usually it's, I notice when people are just kind of on their own a lot during the weekdays, and not truly keeping as busy as we think, understandably so, because the stuff is, you know, pretty intense, the stuff that you're gonna get out of. But they tend to, yeah, be on their own a lot during the week, or just, you know, maybe they'll be seeing their family, but, or even live with them, but a lot of the times they're spending days by themselves. And so I was recently reading Claire Weeks. Okay, so yesterday I mentioned that channel that I really like, OCD Recovery. And when I was already doing quite well, thanks to the support I was getting and working with the awesome OCD psychologist, I decided to look at the reading list they have on the OCD Recovery website, just because I, like, as I was starting to get excited again that I'm living life and re-engaging in life, which all of you guys will be too, I was like, okay, I really want to be able to help people. And so I have a reading goal this year of reading 60 books. And so, like the nerd I am, I was like, let's read some of the ones from their OCD reading list, and hopefully this can help people. And so this little book here, Claire Weeks' Self-Help for Your Nerves, ordered this little baby here, and the first page kind of cracked me up, because you'll see. All right, so the power within you, this is how it starts. Don't worry, I won't bore you by reading too much, but it is a wonderful book. I like to read, which was something that was really tough for me when I was in the loop. I had to literally practice doing that again with the OCD psychologist. So thank you. Okay, the power within you. If you are reading this book because you're having a nervous breakdown, or because your nerves are in a bad way, you are the very person for whom it has been written, and I shall therefore talk directly to you as if you're sitting beside me. I don't know if I love that term, but the part of this book that I found really relevant, and I was like, yes, from my experience of starting to recover, that was so crucial, recognizing how much busier you have to keep, and seeing that, you know, habits you might be engaging in because of this thought loop, such as, like I said, spending all day researching this stuff, or in Facebook groups, or even like talking about it and not really going out a lot, lying around, all of those habits are stuff we that we do need to shift to recover. And people who haven't experienced this themselves will say things like that, like, why don't you just go out with friends, or go to a gym, or like go do this? And if you haven't lived through this yourself, the thought is like, are you crazy? Because it's so intense, it's so bad that people suggesting that are like, you must not know how bad this is. And the advice is not wrong when they say like, oh, you should go like back into this field or go back into work or do this, but it's hard hearing it from people not going through it themselves, if that makes sense, sometimes. So I'm gonna read the section that I was like, yes, that is so on point. Starting to have a routine and keeping busier is really crucial. So let's get to that little chapter, my dear readers. Okay, so this section is a bit dated, as you'll see from the language, but the point she is trying to get at is right on point, which is that I've noticed a lot of us who have been going through this, it's very common for it to start in like the 20s or late 20s, this type of OCD, but also people who might have retired or just like not been as engaged in things as they might once have been. And so here it says, get my reading face on. Okay. A man with occupation, this could be a human, normally away from home, usually keeps his troubles more in perspective and recovers more quickly than a housewife who is left to make beds, sweep floors, and wash up with only tradesmen or children to talk to. Obviously, once again, dated description a bit, but getting at a point that applies to anyone, which is that I think it's really common for a lot of people when they've left like the school environment or something providing structure, and they're on their own a bit more, and maybe like, yeah, just on their own a bit more, it's easier for this stuff to kind of like creep in. And so the good news is the resolution to that is finding like a bunch of cool stuff you can do, which will feel really, really tough at first, but you are going to recover. You are going to like feel good doing the stuff. It just takes, it's kind of taking that initial step of deciding like, okay, here's what I would rather be doing with my day than becoming a professional at researching my symptoms. And doing those activities, even though it's going to feel really uncomfortable and really hard at first, to put it lightly, and it's going to take time and consistency, but it will start to feel normal again and better and fun. And you're going to start to enjoy things once again and like really get to start to enjoy your life. So for me, like when I made the decision that I wanted to, that I was going to recover, which like, of course I wanted to recover, but basically like made the decision to be like, okay, I can't keep, suffering like this. I need help. When I made that decision, I said, I want to focus on travel because I love that, like being able to read books again. I love that. My writing, like engaging with people. I used to have a happiness project where I'd interview people about happiness. So I started that again. And so, yeah, I think at first it was almost impossible for me to even imagine thinking about some of these things and being able to do them. Like it feels so challenging when you're in it, to put it lightly. But you start to realize that there's much more entertaining and like fun things you could do with your day. So for example, I, instead of saying no to it, when I started to get the proper support, and my one friend is really good at planning trips and like suggesting travels, and before I would have been like, I was traveling, like I said, I would go on some of them, but it was so hard. Again, putting it lightly. But I started to say yes to all of these like trips she was planning with, you know, our friend groups and stuff like that. And when she suggested or asked us if we wanted to go on a safari to Africa with her and her dad, and then one of our other good friends joined too, I decided to say yes to that. And it was very, very hard sitting on a plane for 14 hours and then another hour and then another flight. Like, it's the hardest thing I had to do, but I did it, which was cool. And you guys will start to do stuff like this too. And that's because, again, you're finally getting like hope and support and understanding what this obsessive loop does to our brains. And recognizing like, oh yeah, I'm actually not some lunatic like I thought. No, I think that's a big thing where, you know, it was really nice having the OCD psychologist repeat, like, you're not crazy, you have OCD. That could be quite comforting. But yeah, so I started to do things again, that like I was still able to be goofy when I was going through this, but you're not actually feeling the emotions as much of like genuine laughter and happiness and joy. Like, of course you're having moments like that, but it's really hard when you're in this loop to be feeling those emotions. And so just being able to bring back like that goofy sense of humor. So like, I know Amanda Ashley too, I think, had said to us, you'll know you're starting to feel better when your sense of humor like truly comes back. And so yeah, my friend sent me these ridiculous safari hats that she had found on Amazon, and I loved the idea of how ridiculous they were. So thank you. Shout out to her for that. And so I ordered one. So this is like one example of just, you know, I'd rather be spending the day ordering this ridiculous safari hat. Like, that is much more appealing than spending all day, like, who knows, reading every self-help book you can find, or I don't know, lying around anything. So I'll show you this sweet safari hat, which is something that you can start doing too. Like, what would I rather be doing with my day? What would my ideal day look like? And recognizing it's not going to feel easy at first. It's going to feel extremely uncomfortable and hard, but that is normal. So let me get this hat. Okay, so for example, this safari hat. Absolutely ridiculous, but I love this kind of random stuff. Like, amazing. I missed it. And so I would much rather be spending my day ordering hats like this than all of that other stuff this little loop was causing me to engage in. And so that's what I ask people a lot, is like, what are some things, even if you can't feel it or feel like it's going to be really hard to do, what's like a little thing you would rather be doing with your day? I can think of plenty of fun. I think I can think of plenty of fun, ridiculous hobbies for you if you're struggling with coming up with stuff. And in the beginning, like, even when I was asked to write lists of like, what would you like, you know, what are some things you'd like your future to look like? And when things got really bad, like I said, rock bottom city, it was really hard to even think about that or like conceptualize it, because this condition is keeping you so, you know, so caught in its grips. But you want to be the one to win, right? Not this loop. Like, you want to be the winner, if that makes sense. Okay, I just had another thought as I'm headed towards the boardwalk, but if you're one of those humans or like one of those schmucks like me who was lucky enough to end up with this stuff, I'm just kidding. I could see where that, if you're really in it right now, that might not be comforting. But the point is, if you're someone who has been gifted with this stuff, we're lucky. Like, we really are. I know it sounds like I was just being funny there, but like, when you come out of this, and like I said, you will be feeling so much gratitude, so empowered, so grateful. And I remember, like, you know, my awesome psychologist, he's a nice young whippersnapper. I don't know why I just said that, because he's my age, or close to it. But anyways, he had said once, like, some might say this is like a form of torture. And yeah, like, sure was. No, it was really comforting having someone acknowledge that. But it is true that when you start to come out of it, like, something my friend said as he was coming out of it, recently, who had reached out, he was like, you look around and you're like, oh my God, all these people are so beautiful, and like the trees, and it's all so beautiful. And it takes time to get to that point. Like, it takes a lot of time, but it's pretty cool when it starts to happen. So, all right, I'll leave this one off here. All right, so we're walking towards the ocean. The nice ocean in the background. What does this sign say? Oh, no dogs allowed. Guess I'm not allowed. If you have any questions or just topics you would like me to cover, please leave that in the comments below. And like I said, in true, you know, YouTube fashion, now that I have this cool new hobby, if you found the video helpful, please like and subscribe. It always feels so cringy to say that. It's a tough one. Like, how do you say that without sounding like a total douche? Anyways, okay. The conclusion of this is that recognizing maybe just some of the avoidance behaviors you've been engaging in, making a list, and then maybe make a list of like 5 things you've stopped doing. 5 might be a lot. Sorry. Make a list of maybe 1 or 2 things you've stopped doing that you would love to start re-engaging again. And start thinking about that. And also, like, keeping busier, like I said, keeping, as Amanda said, way busier than we have been, because we don't realize that we've not been keeping as busy as we may think. Kind of looking at that stuff in your day, and then not pushing yourself, but just, you know, slowly, as you know it's safe and it's okay, starting to re-engage in those habits. Like I said yesterday, I 100% believe that anyone can recover from chronic symptoms and pain and repetitive thought loops and OCD. You can recover. It just takes some time. So I'm giving you all a very big hug, a huge high five. And all right, I'll leave this off here. I have to go resume my hotel pool hopping mission. I'm gonna go read some of my books, so that should be fun. Gotta get my steps in for the day. Routine has been good. So slowly building back up those routines. All right, talk to you guys soon.